IDC, Leroy Rail, Agri SA, SAA, Exaro, Petro SA, Cato Civils, FirstRand, BBC, DBSA, WBHO, and African investment managers. I will recognize others as I go during the day. If we can please all rise. Welcome, Mr. President. Thank you very much. You may be seated. I would like to introduce or to welcome in our midst His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, and with him he has a number of honorable ministers. I will start with the Minister of Finance, Mr. Enoch Godongwana, and Minister for International Relations and Cooperation, Minister Lamula, the Honorable Minister for Trade, Industry and Competition, Honorable Pax Dao. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our night. We are having a conversation with the executive branch. This conversation is about doing business in Africa, starting with South Africa. We are very honored that the President and his ministers asked us to give them feedback on what it is like to do business as South Africans when we are here at home and when we are not in South Africa. My job as the MC is going to be very short, so I'm not going to give any speech. I'm just going to welcome right now the host, Investec. May I please have Mr. Kumesh Mudia come to the fore.
Good evening, everyone, and a really warm welcome for joining us here at Investec this evening. I represent not just Investec, I also represent the IDC, who are the co-sponsors of our dinner this evening. Before I get into the rest of our brief discussion, it's really a privilege, and I know Sisbongi has already welcomed His Excellency, Mr. President Cyril Ramaphosa, the President of the Republic of South Africa, and a number of honorable ministers from the government cabinet who are joining us here this evening, as well as distinguished leaders of businesses in South Africa and some representing businesses from across the continent, as well as CEOs of a number of leading businesses across financial services, telecommunications, mining, and numerous sectors that represent the South African economy, not just in South Africa, not just on the continent, but globally. So it's a proud moment for us to be able to be standing here today to host this event. I think it will also be remiss of me, Mr. President, not to take this opportunity on behalf of all of us attending here this evening to wish you a belated happy birthday for yesterday. We wish you strong health, a good spirit to lead us into the nation, into the next era, as well as to lead us into the debates and discussions that this G20 brings. We're very proud, South Africans, to be able to say we are the first country on the continent to host the G20. We realize it comes at a time when the world is perhaps becoming more divided, and it actually becomes all the more important that we show the true spirit of what South Africa is about, what the continent is about, and what Ubuntu is about. And I think that is a good segue when we look into our program for the evening, which is really a working dinner. The thematic that we have is a very interesting one. The thematic is how the President has actually reached out together with a number of members of the Cabinet to look at how business would engage with government on a topic where I think South Africa plays a significant role, and in fact has created the precedent of collaboration between business and government. And I refer, Mr. President, to the reform program that you launched, the structural reform program, to Operation Vulindlela, and the working groups that were set up in collaboration between business and government, which culminates in some of what we have seen over the last 2 weeks. A ratings upgrade, a very strong, and credit to our Minister of Finance, a very strong medium-term budget speech, an era where South Africa has inflation well controlled, where our GDP trajectory looks upwards and not downwards and not stagnant, and that we sit with higher levels of investment confidence across corporate South Africa. We do know that this is also a pivotal moment for the rest of the continent. We carry this presidency of the G20 not just for ourselves as a country on the continent, but we carry it for the continent as a whole. And I think this evening's deliberations carry all the more weight because of that. It is the responsibility that we have as a regional economy and as one of the strongest economies on the continent to play a role to build regional collaboration, cross-border trade, and to continue building on strong policy and a legislative environment that will foster ongoing investment. Through your leadership and many of your cabinet, we have started to see the benefits of some of that, and it's with a hope that we carry into the rest of the evening that some of those discussions and some of that precedent that is created will take hold over the G20 discussions and will permeate onto the rest of the continent as we look to achieve a new chapter. If we look at the continent in 2050, we look at a population of close to 2.5 billion, of which 1.4 billion will be working people. People that will need goods and services, people that will need energy. We are able to play to a number of key strengths on the continent: abundant renewable energy sources, rich in minerals, rich in diversity, and rich in human capital. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to be South African. It's an exciting time to be living here. And we all play a critical role into the next chapter. We look forward to having a very good set of deliberations over dinner. And I would like to also again just thank the IDC for their support and sponsorship together with members of the Presidency as well as the team from Investec. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kumesh. It is my honor at this stage to call on Sis Gloria, representing the IDC, to say a few words of welcome. She, the IDC, is our main sponsor for the evening. Can we please give them a round of applause?
Good evening. I don't like that. Good evening. Hey. Sorry about that, President. I'm sure you heard I was called Sis Gloria here. So this glorious Rory thing doesn't work. Your Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, Honorable Minister Lamula, Honorable Minister Tau, may I just say, that is now my minister, I must say it twice, Honorable Minister Tau, distinguished CEOs and esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. On behalf of the Industrial Development Corporation, which I have just recently chaired from Busimabuza that you all know, it is my privilege to welcome you to this important engagement ahead of the G20 Leaders Summit. Tonight we gather not only as South Africans, but as partners in shaping Africa's industrial future. For 85 years, the IDC has been a cornerstone of South Africa's industrial development, financing transformative projects, building resilient industries, and creating jobs that sustain communities. Our journey has extended beyond our borders with investments across 15 countries that have supported industrialization. Our goal is to strengthen regional value chains and deepen economic integration. So when South Africa assumed the G20 presidency, our collective responsibility, guided by the President, was clear: to champion inclusive growth and unlock opportunities that position Africa as a key player in global trade and innovation. The corporation has seized the opportunity presented by the G20 presidency and the B20, particularly through the Trade and Investment Working Group, of which my predecessor chairs, to advance critical policy recommendations. These efforts focus on strengthening a fair and resilient multilateral trading system, boosting intra-African trade, and addressing the challenges faced by entrepreneurs, especially SMMEs. So when Minister Lamula and his team invited the IDC to partner in hosting this important engagement, we did embrace the opportunity, recognizing its alignment with our continental strategy and its complementarity to ongoing collaboration with DECO's broader economic diplomacy initiatives. Guided by our continental strategy, the IDC remains committed to accelerating industrialization across Africa, driving structural transformation from primary production to value-added manufacturing, and championing the green transition that will define the future of the industry. Our ambitions are firmly aligned with the African Continental Free Trade Area, which offers unprecedented opportunities for intra-African trade and industrial collaboration. By leveraging AFTA's framework, we aim to build competitive regional value chains in sectors such as energy, agro-processing, automotive, and green technologies, creating jobs, driving innovation, and ensuring Africa's voice is strong in global markets. We believe that Africa's prosperity will be driven by collaboration between governments, business leaders, and development institutions. Together,
Mr. President, I'm pleased to report that DERCO and the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, working closely with business, have established a new coordinating platform to unlock opportunities across the continent. This mechanism, known as the Committee for the Coordination of Economic Diplomacy, COMET, brings government and the private sector together to advance South Africa's economic footprint. Business leaders who attended a working dinner we hosted last year shared with me and DTIC their investments on the continent as well as their challenges they encounter. That dinner was hosted by Standard Bank and, if I'm not mistaken, DBSA. So I'm glad that today is Investec and the IDC. It shows that the partnerships can grow from strength to strength. Today's engagement and what we have been preoccupied with since that exchange is a practical demonstration of government's commitment to support our companies across the continent. I'm also pleased to share that we are also exploring and developing a proactive investment facilitation framework that will offer support through our foreign economic offices, our missions across the continent, improve market intelligence and regulatory advice, and strengthen risk mitigation tools. This will be anchored in the Protection of Investment Act of 2015 and will prioritize transparency, predictability, simpler administrative processes, and effective dispute prevention. It will also balance investor protection with the sovereign right to regulate in the public interest and complement the AFCFTA investment protocol, as well as the WTO investment facilitation for development. Our economic diplomacy is also aims to create an investment climate that supports our companies and encourage African firms also to see South Africa as a destination of choice, because investment is a two-way stream. Our African brothers and sisters should also look into opportunities in South Africa. The second leg is about the growing public mood in our country against regional integration and international cooperation on the home soil. How do we show in tangible ways that regional integration, greater intra-Africa trade, and deeper exchange amongst our peoples are not the preoccupation of an aloof political class or a profit-maximizing business elite? Put differently, how do we demonstrate that ordinary people in this country stand to gain as much from regional integration as anyone else? Part of the answer offered by this economic diplomacy strategy is that South Africa's international engagements must deliver measurable and lasting economic benefits for its people. The people of South Africa across the country must see and touch the benefits of companies of South Africa that are investing across the continent. They must feel and touch it in Makado, in Hluhluwe, or in any parts of the country, so that they will have to understand that we have to trade with our African brothers and sisters, and how do we share in this small pie that we have. This is a consciousness that we have to build. This also rely on business also playing a long game and resisting the pull of short-term gain in favor of stronger returns over time and stronger returns for our society. This is neither naive nor idealistic. We believe it is practical and it is possible. I believe there will be many other inputs that will come from businesses. How do we deal with the issues of political risks and so forth? But we can engage on some of them in the closed session. President Ramaphosa, your steady leadership, strategic judgment, and cooperative spirit grounded in Ubuntu will be vital as we advance on this path, on building on this path of investment in the continent and also of trade and exchange. And we believe that this document that we speak about of the strategy on economic diplomacy, we will soon be publicizing it. It is within the cabinet cycle processes. I know that through the ComEd platform, there has been engagement with business on it, but you still have a chance to enrich it before cabinet fully adopts it. But this platform also creates that opportunity for further enriching the discussion. We will now request Your Excellency, President Ramaphosa, to come and address this meeting that I was instructed to convene. Mr. President.
Let's be seated, please. Program Director, Ms. Bongi Kunene, Minister of International Relations, Ronald Ozi Lamula, Minister of Trade and Industry, Mr. Pax Mpho Tau, Minister of Finance, Enoch Madiba Kodongwana, Ms. Gloria Sirobe, Chairperson of the IDC and CEO of Investec South Africa, Ms. Lerato Mbele, the moderator, who will be coming forward, I guess, in a minute or so. Business leaders who are here present, and ladies and gentlemen, as well as Mcebisi Jonas, who is my envoy, but whose one other working highlight was to facilitate, as an envoy, a visit that we recently had to the Vatican. And I don't know why he facilitated that. He may well have thought that I'm in need of forgiveness for my sins. And indeed, as you go to the Vatican, they guide you through St. Peter's Basilica, which is an amazing building. Some Catholics who are here who may well have gone will testify to the unbelievable beauty and architectural construction of that basilica, which is more than 500 years old. But there is a particular door or archway, which they say if you go through that, your sins are forgiven. So I made it a point to go through 2 times so that I could have my sins forgiven. But I also asked my colleagues, the officials of the African National Congress, I said they should each give me a list of their own sins, which I could hand over to the Pope. So my discussions with the Pope on a one-to-one basis did not give me the opportunity to hand over the list to him, but I have the list of their sins. And one day when the Pope visits South Africa, as we asked him to, I'll be able to hand that list over to him. It's a real joy to be here. I'm pleased to be amongst you all this evening. And I'd like to thank Minister Lamola for having taken up this idea that I posited to him as we were flying back from one of our international trips. I think it was from Brussels, where we had engaged with the European Union, who had then made an investment announcement amounting to some, I think, 300 billion rand into South Africa. And they had called it the European Gateway. And it was dubbed as the EU investing as a bloc of all those, I think, 27 countries investing in South Africa. And we found that very impressive. But we also started looking at ourselves as the most industrialized country on the continent and how our companies have surged into the continent. And we felt that we needed to bring together businesses that have made investments on our continent and that intend to do so that we can give more credence to this notion of South Africa being the economic powerhouse of our continent, and so that we can believe it, but also South Africa being the gateway into the continent. And my idea was that we should consolidate the notion of Team Investment and Trade South Africa, so that we can get our companies to have a sense that as they go out to invest on the continent, their government supports them. Their government stands with them, and it must be a Team South Africa effort when it comes to investments and trade and whatever our companies do. Minister of Trade and Industry and International Relations have, as they said correctly, developed a strategy for enabling us to build this enabling environment to assist our companies and to support them, because a number of our companies do, from time to time, and sometimes it's on an ad hoc basis, come to us at times in moments of crisis. Sometimes when a CEO has been arrested for just a small tax infraction, when a business has been closed or subjected to some pressures, and we said that we want to support them. But at the same time, our businesses must have a sense that they are Team South Africa, and hence the notion of the gateway. We are gathering just 3 days before the start of the G20 Leaders Summit, which is being held for the first time, as we all know, on African soil, and that should give all of us a sense of pride, as well as a sense of honor, and I would say privilege. Because in the history of the G20, and coming together of the big economies in the world, which represent about 80% of world GDP, have never really focused on Africa in the way that this G20 is seeking to make them to focus on our continent and us. When we assumed the G20 presidency, we said Africa should be at the center of the deliberations of this strategic forum. This is the context in which we sought this engagement tonight, so that we can share experiences as well as perspectives on advancing this agenda through trade, commerce, and investment. On Friday, I will be meeting with the African heads of state and government who we have invited to be part of the G20 Leaders Summit. We will also have the chairperson of the African Union as well as the African Union Commission, who, as we know, the AU is now a member of the G20, as a result of our campaign that South Africa should not be the only country or only representative of the continent in the G20 process. And we are very pleased that we won that debate. There was a lot of opposition, but we finally won the debate that our continent must formally be represented, like the EU is formally represented in the G20. And because you are all Africans, you can give that a round of applause. Now, at this meeting that we are going to hold with the African leaders, I hope to showcase the extent and the scope of investment by South African companies in the various African countries. Now, this will be an opportunity to reaffirm the commitment of South African companies to the development of the continent. We will reiterate our shared responsibility to create conducive and enabling conditions for doing business in each other's countries. I've held the belief that we do need to meet as African leaders to discuss the various issues that are troubling to business, and not just discuss them in a theoretical way at the AU Assembly, but to discuss them amongst ourselves, having heard from business, but also create an opportunity where business will be present so that business can talk to African leaders. And we will create that opportunity, having started this process. We acknowledge the work that has been undertaken by the B20 to connect the business community with governments. Many of you gathered here have made significant contributions to the B20 deliberations during our G20 presidency. And I've seen that as a great contribution. And it hasn't only been the B20. We are actually president of a very unique G20 process. Much as it isn't much appreciated elsewhere in the world, where it is said that we are convening a G100 summit. But we are convening an inclusive summit. Today, the Deputy President opened the G20 Social Summit. And a few minutes ago, I met with media people, journalists and all of them, who have corralled a number of media people in 19 countries that are part of the G20, and they've come up with a G20 media declaration dealing with things like freedom of the press and the persecution of journalists in various parts of the world. So our G20 is rather special because it speaks to the theme that we chose: solidarity, equality, and sustainability. And I do wish we had added the word inclusion, because it's become such a hated word in the world. We should have added that because our G20 is about inclusion. As South African executives, you have a critical role to play in efforts to drive inclusive growth across our continent and across the globe. As the most industrialized and diverse economy on the continent, with a vibrant and engaged business community, and may I say also a vocal business community, South Africa is well positioned to enable investment and trade across the continent. Domestically, we are seeing the green shoots of an emerging economic recovery. The most recent employment figures are encouraging. They may change and go down at times, but the trend will be an upward movement trend. We are set to record another primary budget surplus and are on a path to reduce our sovereign debt. And we congratulate our colleagues in Treasury for having crafted a rather solid medium-term budget policy statement. And thanks to Minister. Our country has been taken off, which is another positive, the FATF grade list after 2 years of hard work. Last week, the S&P upgraded our country's sovereign credit rating, and our electricity supply, which was a problem that dogged us for a number of years, has dramatically improved, and we are seeing progress in the turnaround at our ports and at our railways. So things are moving up. The reform agenda, which is transforming our network industries and our other accompanying areas of focus, which include crime, which include fighting corruption, which include working on our local government, all those are beginning to move in the right direction. In a complex, despite these positive developments, however, I should add that there are still some headwinds. In a complex and uncertain global economic environment, we need to strengthen the capacity of our economy to compete, to produce, and to trade. Over many years, South Africa's companies have become innovative and adaptive, skillfully navigating enormous challenges and going into difficult markets, which a number of people, investors and others and critics wondered what was wrong with South African companies as they surged into very dangerous territories and uncertain territories. I remember very well I was chairman of MTN, which Mcebisi Jonas has now inherited. When MTN invested in Nigeria, people were alarmed and said, have they lost their marbles? Have they lost their heads? Those South African companies have been brave, bold, and resilient. And these capabilities that we should draw on as we broaden our horizons and explore new markets for trade and investment on our own continent are what we should use as a great foundation. The implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area will profoundly transform market access for South African goods, services, and investments. It will help to drive regional integration and value chains across borders. It will expand opportunities for businesses to access a wider African market of about 1.4 billion people at the moment and rising even more when we reach 2.5 billion people. And currently with a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion US. Grounded in our shared belief that South Africa's growth and prosperity is in the end intrinsically intertwined with that of the African continent. During apartheid days or years, we never saw South Africa as connected to the African continent. But we are inherently African. And therefore, through business acumen, business involvement, we must see ourselves as being fully African. And I'm rather proud that many of our companies have gone into various African markets. And we should do this as we continue to amplify our common heritage and shared future. We must undertake our activities, investment activities and otherwise, with greater purpose. As Africa grows and prospers, so will South Africa also grow. We are therefore calling on South African companies to be part of setting our country and our continent on a new economic trajectory. This is a task that we need to undertake together as government and as business, to look at opportunities beyond our borders and to be part of building a better Africa. I'd like this to be then the start of a new chapter. But then you are going to ask, what is it that government will do for us as businesses as we undertake this work? And of course, many of you will be able to say, government, yes, has supported us, has helped us, but some of you will say, at times we felt stranded. At times we felt that we're alone as businesses. Now, as Minister Lamula has said, the strategy that is being developed and will finally be approved by Cabinet is a strategy that we believe will give much more support to your businesses, to your operations as you surge into the African continent. Now, we have dubbed this engagement a Getaway Africa because we want to build a Team South Africa concept as we support you in your businesses. This approach will give more credence, as I said, to the notion of South Africa as a gateway into the African continent. Let it be the work that we can undertake. From our government perspective, we will be ready, willing, and prepared through giving government support, diplomatic support, to the businesses. And we will be deploying even more knowledgeable people throughout our various embassies and consulates on the continent who will give you great support, as Minister Lamula said, be able to give market intelligence, be able to give a full analysis of the laws and the regulations of the markets that we will be operating in. But in order for us to do so more intelligently, it is important that we should hear from you as businesses as we seek to build this Team South Africa concept that will enable us to move as one into the continent, where you are going through your various activities going to make big-ticket investments. The government will want to be there to support. The government will want to be there not so much to give a South African stamp on those types of investments, but to demonstrate that your government, South Africa, is there to support the work that you do. We, as a government, are playing a key role on the diplomatic level in various parts of our continent with peace building, with skills development, and also social assistance. We do want to give much more support to an area that is so important, not only to your businesses, but to our country as well, so that South Africa becomes much more united and working together with our businesses. We have succeeded extremely well in working with you here at home. We've built a solid team between government, yes, labor, as well as business. And we've been able to address a number of challenges that have enabled us to push forward the reform process that we are pushing forward with. Therefore, when it comes to trade, investments, and surging into the continent for business purposes, we want to use government support, diplomatic support to assist you all as we engage. So tonight, I'd like to hear more from you, what your challenges are, what your expectations are, what your fears are, what the risks are, and how government can help. This is why I'm glad that the minister has saved his job by convening this engagement tonight. Thank you very much.